What you guys, today we're taking a look at how to make your own custom Windows ISO. This can be Windows 10 or Windows 11, and I'm going to show you how to create your own custom ISO with all your own drivers, also your registry tweaks inside of it, and you can also add in other things in here and disable a bunch of stuff that you don't want inside your ISO. Now, first off, this is not for everyone, but if you're one of those people that want a super lightweight version of Windows, then this is basically how you're going to go about doing it. Now, I always tell people never use ISOs that you find online that have stuff ripped out of them. I've reviewed them in the past and I've told you never to use those. You're better off creating your own custom Windows ISOs. It's pretty straightforward and easy to do, and I'll show you how to do it in this video. But before we go ahead and do that, let's have a quick word from today's video sponsor, and then we can get on with the tutorial. If you're looking for a cheap Windows 10 Pro or cheap Windows 11 Pro OEM key, then check out the links in the video description. Head over to CD Key Sales and create your account. Then all you need to do is click on the Buy Now button and basically use my promo code R09 and you'll get yourself a 30% discount on all of your purchases. So once you're ready, submit your order and then you can use PayPal to pay for your purchase. They will send you your key and you're up and running in no time at all. Links are in the video description. Okay, so let's get back to the tutorial. The first thing you're going to want to do is on your computer, if you're creating it for the computer that you're on, you might want to get all of your drivers for that particular motherboard. Do a search for your motherboard type. You can use system information and this will tell you what motherboard is on your computer. You can then head over to that website and then download all of the latest drivers for that particular motherboard. And this will mean that when you go to install your version of Windows, whether it be Windows 10 or Windows 11, you can download all the drivers that you need and it will be no more hunting for the latest drivers. You can integrate these into your Windows 10 or Windows 11 ISO. It's very simple and easy to do. So head over to your website of choice and then go to your recommended operating system, which will be either Windows 10 or Windows 11. Once you select that, it'll give you all the drivers for that particular operating system and that motherboard, and you can download your LAN, your wireless drivers, your chipset drivers, and audio drivers, and all the necessary drivers that you're going to need for that particular build. Now, you don't have to integrate drivers on your system if you don't want to, but this is going to be how you can do it if you want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and download all of these. Then you're going to need to create a folder called drivers in a location of your choice on your PC, and extract all of the drivers that you've just downloaded and put them into the folders on the driver side. So let's go ahead and drag these over and you can see they're now inside the driver folder, and I'm going to use these to integrate into my ISO build. If you don't have a folder there like this, you can always create a folder and drag them into that folder inside your drivers folder. It's that simple. Once we've done this, we can then head over to the website and download the very latest version of Windows 10 or Windows 11. So I'm going to go ahead and do this right now. And once we've got this downloaded, we can then extract all the files inside that ISO and put it into another folder of our choice. That way we can use these to integrate all the stuff into that ISO. I'll show you how to do it. It's very simple and easy to do. Next, you're going to need to get NTLite. This is a very powerful tool that's going to allow you to debloat the ISO and also integrate a bunch of different stuff like drivers, programs, and other things like that. So download the 64-bit version if you're on a 64-bit operating system, which you should be. So let's go ahead and download that right now. And what we'll do is we'll get this installed on the system. So first off, what I'm going to do here, you can see I have all my drivers now installed in their own folders inside the driver folder. What I'm going to do is create another folder called Win11. And this is where we're going to extract our Windows 11 ISO or Windows 10 ISO into. We need to do this because we need to mount it. So open up the ISO with 7-zip. And what we're going to do is drag all the files into our Win11 folder or Win10 folder, depending on what version of Windows you're using. So we'll drag all these files in and they're now done, as you can see here. So we can now close this off and we can move on to the next step. So the next step is installing NTLite. And what we're going to do is get this installed. You should see something looking like this. I'm going to put it on the free version here and click OK. And what we're going to do here now is we need to mount our ISO that we've just extracted. So let's go ahead and get all the Windows files mounted into this software. To do that, you need to go up to the top left-hand side, click on Add, and you should see ISO, Image ISO Wim, ESD, and we can click on this one here. So click on that one there. And then what we can do, once we click on this one, we can navigate to our Win10 or Win11 folder that we created, which is in our C drive. And this will have all of our extracted files from that Windows 10 or Windows 11 ISO. Here is mine here. So I'm going to select on Win11. And inside here, you're going to open up this folder and we need to go to Sources. So let's go into Sources. And then you should see Boot Wim and also Install Wim. The Install Wim is the one that we want to select. So I'm going to select this one here. And now you should see it at the bottom saying Other. We can open this up here. Make sure you're in the right one here. And now you'll get a choice of versions of Windows 10 or Windows 11 that you can mount. We're going to be mounting the Windows 11 Pro version because that's the version I use. So we're going to go ahead and mount that. It takes a bit of time, but once that's mounted, you should see the green light shining up on the actual one that you've mounted, just like so. That means now on the left-hand side, we have a menu system that we can go through and make changes to our ISO. So let's first start off with the top left-hand side, the integrates part here. You can go to updates and you can also integrate drivers and registry. So if you want to go ahead and integrate some stuff, this is where you're going to be integrating all of the stuff you want to integrate. So let's go ahead and try drivers here because that's what we've just extracted into our folders. And I'll show you the other ones in a second. So let's go ahead and click on drivers and then click on the top left-hand side again, click on add and you'll see driver files and directory containing drivers. So we're going to click on directory containing drivers, click on add, and now we can navigate to that directory where we've got those drivers, which is in my C root directory. Yours may be somewhere else. So let's go ahead and select that folder and we can now select folder here. And this will then integrate all of our drivers into our build. This is if you want to integrate all your drivers from your computer. It's done just that simple. So they're all in, ready to go. And now we can move on to the next section, which is updates. Now, if you don't want to integrate drivers, you don't have to. But if you want to, that's how you can integrate drivers into your build. Next, we're going to move on to the update section and we're going to get all of the latest updates for this particular build. So click on add, get latest updates, and you can see here, you can now check mark what you want to integrate into your build. And basically all we need to do is once you've got these done, check mark the ones you want, and then you can put the little tab down the bottom right hand side here. So let me go ahead and check mark these. And we can click on NQ here down the bottom right hand side. So click on the NQ here. And what this is going to do is put them into a queue ready to download these a little bit later on when we finish the build. So there we are right there. They're all listed there. Yours might have a few more in there depending how outdated yours are. But that's the one we're going to be using right here. So we're going to go ahead and leave that as is. Next up, registry. So you can go in here and you can add loads of registry tweaks inside of your build. Now, if you've got registry files with loads of tweaks in them, this is the place to add them. Click on add, and this will then allow you to add in all of your tweaks. I've got a bunch of them here, which I've got off NTLite website. There's people over there that have created all these for you, and you can see I'll open these up and it will show you exactly what they look like right here. So let me quickly open this up, and there you go. This is going to do a bunch of tweaks on the system. So someone's put the time and effort in to create all of these for you, so you don't have to. If you don't know what you're doing here and you don't want to disable stuff that you don't understand, then leave this part out. You don't need to touch it. But if you do want to get the most out of your build, then you can add all of this stuff in. These are power settings, security settings, settings on Windows, and this will give you the optimal setup for your system. If you want to change any of these, you can do. If you want to enable them or disable them, whatever it is, you can make changes to that registry file if you know what you're doing. There's a bunch of stuff inside here. I'm just going to add them. Click on add, registry files, or directory containing the registry files. That's the one we're going to click on. Click add, and we're going to go straight to that tweaks folder that we've created inside our C root directory here. Go back, and there it is right there. Click add and submit, and this will submit all of the files into our build. So let's go ahead and do that. It's going to take a little bit of time to populate these, but once that's populated, this is going to make a load of changes on our system for us. As you can see here, there's tons of them inside here, and someone's gone through the trouble of creating all of these. So whoever did that, kudos to you. Really do appreciate it. And once you've done this, you can basically move on to the next step, which is components. Now there's a little prompt box here telling you about removing parts in this section. This is removing key components from Windows, so be very, very careful on what you start removing. You will end up breaking the actual build that you're creating and it won't work. So just be very, very careful. We're going into the Windows app section here, and we're just going to be removing a bunch of Windows apps that you don't want. Now we've already got tweaks already inside the registry bit, but I wanted to show you this bit just in case you want to go about doing it this way. You can go through here with a fine-tooth comb and basically remove some of the apps that you don't want. So any of the apps inside here you don't need, just uncheck mark them and basically remove them. Now remember, we're using the free version here, so you're going to have some limitations to this software, but you can get a pretty good build done with the free version. So let's go ahead and remove some of these here. Now, as I've said before, if you're going to remove Microsoft Edge, you will need to replace that with another browser. I'll show you how to do that near the end of the video, where you can add in your own browser. But basically, once you've unchecked all of the stuff that you want to uncheck, you can move on to the next section. Now, it's impossible for me to know exactly what your build is going to be needing, so I'm not going to show you everything to remove because everyone needs different options available to them when they're using their computer. So it's impossible for me to make a complete build for everyone. This is important. This one here under System Apps. Again, you can see Content Delivery Manager. This will remove all of the bloat from Windows, which is all of the Candy Crush and stuff like that. It will stop them from coming down and being installed. Be very careful when you're messing around inside here. You've got a few other options you can mess about with, like narrator and things like that. But really, to be honest, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just leave it alone and leave some of this stuff alone to some people that know what they're doing. And that way you won't end up with a bricked operating system once you go to install it. So just leave this very minimal. You will still get a very good quality operating system once it's installed, with very little parts that are broken. Scheduled tasks, you can go in here. If you know what you're doing, you can tweak some of this stuff if you want to. Personally, I would leave this part alone and move on to the next section, which is features. Again, this is parts where you can add features in or take features out. You don't want to be removing everything here, but if you don't need Windows Search, you can uncheck mark this and it won't have Windows Search enabled on the installation. So if you want that gone, that's how you can do it. If you want some features added, like maybe Windows Sandbox or maybe Hyper-V or something like that, you can add it in. If you don't want media features like Windows Media Player and things like that, you can uncheck mark them. The choice is yours. Everyone's going to have different options which they want to enable and disable. Just be very careful when you're disabling stuff in here that you might need later on. So just go ahead and check mark some of the stuff you don't need and some of the stuff you do need. So let's move on to the next section, which is the settings area. There's tons of settings inside here that you can mess around with. But again, you have to be super careful. If you want to go into this area here, say desktop, you can change the accent colors and also the login colors here. You can change all this to whatever you like. Some people like it dark. Some people like more bright colors. This is where you can change your color theme during the installation. And you can change some other stuff like context menus, dark mode, and a bunch of other things like that. If you want to enable all this stuff, you can go through here. As I've said, take your time. You can enable things and disable them by default. If you want to leave them default, leave them default. If you want to change them, all you need to do, I'll show you right here. Just choose one that you want to change. For instance, this dark mode color. And you can see when you click on it, it'll go disabled and enabled. I've just enabled the dark mode here. Again, desktop control panel. If you wanted to add that on your desktop, you can click on this and it will either enable it or disable it. I've enabled it. And if you want to put it back to default, just click it again and it goes back to default. It's pointless me showing you exactly what I would do here because everyone's going to have different options that they like to enable and disable. Some people might not want dark mode. If I enable dark mode and they don't want it, they're going to get confused. So just read through this list and just enable and disable or leave default if you don't know what it is. You can go through here in the privacy sections. There's a bunch of stuff here, but remember, we've added those registry files, which is going to make a bunch of changes for us. So we don't have to go too crazy here, but just work your way through the list and basically make the changes that you want to make for your particular build. Everyone is different and everyone's going to have different options that they want to enable and disable here. So just go through here and take your time and just enable and disable, just like I'm showing you right here. It's very simple and easy to do. You just click on them and they will make the changes. Okay, so let's move on to the next section here. Once you've done all of this, you can move on to the services tab. Now, there is a few services here that you might want to change. So go into the services area here. And if there's stuff in here that you don't need and you want to disable it right here during the installation part, you can do. You can see some are already done by default by Windows. But again, if you see stuff in here that you don't want, maybe some telemetry stuff, you can disable them. Maybe it's Hyper-V. You don't want any of that stuff on there. You can disable all that. Whatever you want to do, just be a bit careful because, again, you've got to be careful when you're check marking certain things that is needed by Windows. So let's go ahead and show you basically how this works. It's the same principle. You just find one that you want to disable and click on it and put it to manual, auto, or disabled or something like that, depending on how you want to do it. So I'll give you an example here. This one here is for telemetry. You can put this to disable, and the user experience and telemetry has been disabled, and that won't be enabled once we install Windows. So that's now done. And again, there might be some other ones in here that you like to change. But again, move on to the next bit, which is extra services here. And I'm going to move on to the next one. We're going to move past this and move on to the unattended. So the unattended is just simply grayed out here, but if you go up to this area on the top left hand side here, you will see you can enable this feature, and this will now allow you to enable the added local account. If you want to have a local account installed, you can do. You can give it a name. For instance, here I'm going to call mine Britec here. Just make sure you're not enabling the top bit that says enable built-in administrator account. We don't want that, so leave that unchecked. And then basically get this done, put your password in if you want one, click OK, and you're now all set. Now there is some other options available here which you can just hover over and basically skip. For instance, the EULA page. If you don't want to enable this or go through this process during the installation, just put it onto true and it will skip it. And there's a bunch of other stuff in here as well which you can go through, like skip the online account. Microsoft account, we'll put that on true. And again, wireless setup, if you need to skip that, you can do. I'm going to leave that alone. Network location and also a bunch of other stuff here. So go through here and check mark the stuff that you want on yours. Once it's done, we can move on to the next section. But there is also an OEM bit here which I wanted to cover if you're a company and you want to add in, say, for instance, all of your stuff like your logo, your website and things like that for all your clients and customers. Personally, I would not use super ripped out versions of Windows on clients' PCs because, again, you're just going to get yourself into a heap of trouble of support. But right here, you can see URL, supported URL, phone, hours, and also manufacturer, and your logo can be up there. Now you've done that, you can move on to the post setup, which is where we can add in some other stuff. So for instance, if you need a browser, you can head over to Google and download the Google bundle, and this will be the complete package. Once we extract this, we can add in the actual file here. Now, one thing you have to remember, you need to do silent installs here. You cannot do, like an install where you're having to integrate with the installation process, like saying yes for this and no for that. It's not going to work. And you're going to end up with a bricked OS. So be very, very careful. Make sure you're only using the silent install versions here, either MSI or EXE. And you can select this one right here. You can see it's not the standard Google file. Go up to the top, click on Add. And we can go for File and click on File here. And once we click File, we can select our file. And I'm going to go ahead and find that location here. There it is right here inside the installers. And click this one here. Now, I can't stress enough how to be careful of this section, because if you start adding normal programs that need you to interact with during the installation process, your installation of Windows is not going to complete, and you're going to be caught up with the screen just circling there and not installing these applications. So you need to make sure you get the silent install versions, and you can go through here. They've got these little switches that you can put in here, either silent switches or you can see passive. And you can see here, this one is from the actual NTLite website. There's a big long list of them here, and this is the silent switch here. You just need to make sure you're putting the right switch for the right application, and it will go ahead and install these during the installation. I wouldn't overload it with loads and loads of different programs. I try to keep mine as clean as possible, but if you want to add applications, then this is how you're going to go about doing it. I'll try and show you a list of stuff that I found on their website. I don't know whether some of these are obsolete anymore or whether they still work, but again, I'll show you them anyway so you can go through there and have a little look and work out which apps you want to use. Again, just don't overload it because it will take ages to install and you don't want to go through all that palaver. So you can see here on their site, there's tons of them here with the silent switches, which will basically install and you can choose which ones you want. You can see the little switches underneath, silent switches here. So very useful. This process really doesn't really speed up the installation process. So I'll probably remove those and just leave Google Chrome and remove the other ones and have a cleaner install that way. So next up, we're going to go to the apply section. We can save the image and trim down the additions. I don't need all the other additions. I just need one addition, which is the Windows 11 Pro. And that's the version that we're going to go for here. And it will remove all the other stuff that we don't want. So from the actual build, which will reduce the size of it. Next, you can either use it as a standard WIM, or you can basically compress it with a high compression of read-only ESO. And again, if you want to do that, you can do. I'm going to leave it as a WIM. Once you're done here, give it a name and basically apply this, and you will then have created your ISO. So let's give it one called Britec-NTLite.ISO and click save. And again, you can give this the ISO options here. I'm just going to give it another name here. Just put Britec in the front of that one so I know what I'm doing here. And once that's done, we can click OK. And once we click apply, this is going to basically start this process off. So we're going to say yes, and it's going to go off and start downloading those updates that we've put them on the NQ here. It's going to download these and get them integrated into our build, and it will go through our list here, which is going to configure the features, download and slipstream all of the drivers in here, make all the changes here. Again, I've not gone crazy. I'm just showing you basically how to do it, and you can go a bit creative with your builds. This is just a quick tutorial showing you basically how to use this software and how to get your own custom ISOs. Everyone is going to have their own different requirements and different needs, and this is why everyone has to build their own, because not everyone is going to be needing the same features. Some people don't want all of the other stuff like Windows Defender or any of the other bits and pieces on there, which some people might. So offering up ISO files are really not really useful to anyone, because some people are going to need different stuff than others. Anyway, that has now all been completed. Click OK here. It's going to go through a cleanup process, and then you should have your ISO file. What I'd advise you to do is install it onto a virtual machine, and that way you can test it to see if it's working okay. Once you know it's working okay, create your bootable USB flash drive and install it onto your PC. This way you'll know it's clean and safe because you've created it yourself. Anyway, with that said, my name has been Brian from briteccomputers.co.uk. Hope this video has been some sort of use to you. If you enjoy this sort of stuff, then let me know in the comment section below. I'd be happy to make more videos on this sort of stuff if you're interested. Have a lovely weekend. Big shout out to my YouTube members. I appreciate the support, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.